Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unlocked, where we talk about unlocking the potential of you, the people you work with, and the people you do life with. At the time of this recording, I'm offering all of you, yes, my lovely listeners, a free 15-minute communication coaching call. You come with some kind of communication problem, and I give you a solution. My calendar link is in the show notes, so check that out. When we talk about leadership, there is accidental leadership, there's intentional leadership. I talk about those things a lot, but I don't necessarily talk about this idea of being a thoughtful leader and how to become a thoughtful leader. So that's why my guest today, Randy Hain, is so important, because he just wrote a book called Becoming a More Thoughtful Leader. And that is pretty cool. And we're going to talk about where that came from and what the idea is behind all of that. Randy Hain is president of Serviam Partners and the co-founder of the Leadership Foundry, with a successful 30-plus year career in senior leadership roles, corporate talent, and executive search, which we're going to talk about here because I thought that was interesting. He is a sought-after executive coach for senior leaders and their teams at some of the best well-known companies in the U.S. and globally who are seeking candid and expert guidance on how to overcome obstacles to their success and develop new leadership skills. He's also a dedicated husband, father, community servant, and he's the author of, 11 books, including the newest, Becoming a Thoughtful Leader. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today, along with some other really, exploratory things. I hope you find this interesting. I usually ask questions that I find interesting, and I hope that you're going to find them interesting too. So here we go. Randy, thanks for being on.
Scott, it is a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This is going to be good. You are my second Atlanta interview today, and I am excited because I think Atlanta is awesome, and I think there should be more people here.
No place I'd rather be.
Maybe not more people. I think we got enough traffic as it is. Tell me about your background, though. I want to know how you got into what you're doing. Most people don't come out of school, right, doing what you're doing now. And so I want to know how that transition happened.
Yeah. So if we kind of reverse engineer the career, I'm an executive coach, leadership consultant, and author today. But when I got my political science degree from University of Georgia many years ago, that's not what I was thinking I would be doing. So I spent my first 25 years in corporate America, senior executive, ran operations, ran the people function for Waffle House for 4 years. I was an officer and a leader there. And then I ran an executive search firm for 13 years. But as I look back, all of that was, I think, training and development and foundation building for the executive coaching work that I do today. So again, first 25 years, traditional corporate path, but the last 12 years, all I get to do is work I love. I really love coaching, and I feel very blessed.
So tell me, okay, I didn't know we were going to go here. So surprise, here we go.
Sure.
Executive search.
Yes.
You were doing that for a long chunk of time
of
time. So thinking about that and going into executive coaching, what did you learn from doing executive search stuff that you now apply to your coaching stuff?
That's a great question. Surprisingly, these are first cousins. These careers are first cousins. So at this company that I ran for so many years, I was working with C-level executives, helping them find talent to build out their teams. Okay. So as part of that, you would assume lots of conversations that really were coaching conversations. So I was coaching C-level leaders, thinking about strategically who's the right fit. And then inevitably that turned into, well, Randy, can you give me some insight about this? Could I get your advice about that? And I found that I just had this natural affinity for coaching style leadership conversations. And over the years, I just recognized I really just want to do coaching full time. So I cut my teeth in executive search, having coaching conversations. started writing my first books back then. But then once I got near the end of my time at this company, I said, I think I just want to do coaching. So I sold my equity in Bell Oaks Executive Search and started my company, Serviam Partners.
Hmm. Okay, because I think you would get some interesting insights doing the
Mhm.
right insights from whoever that leader was, your client was, of like, what
Mhm.
are they looking for? What are they doing? What was one of the top things that people are looking for when they're doing executive searches?
I think when I think about the kind of work that we did, we were not a firm that ran ads. We were recruiting talent that fit what our clients were looking for. So to answer your question, we're looking for culture fit. We're looking for people that really fit, what our culture is. We're looking for people that fit the leadership style of the leader that was engaging us. So if a CEO is looking for a CFO, we wanted someone that obviously had the skills, but someone that really fit their style. So culture fit, leadership style fit, values fit. These are all things that we're really assessing. And what was really different about the company that I ran is we were calling into companies, finding people who were not actively looking and getting them excited about what our client was looking for. And that's a pretty special skill set. And we had some amazing people that worked for us that were really talented at that. So it was a lot of fun, kind of stressful, but a lot of fun.
So that sounds interesting to me too, because I'm backing into this whole thing, right?
Yeah,
So
sure.
what you were searching for people with cultural fit, leadership style.
Mhm.
So we're not talking hard skills like, you know, did you have a record of performance of running? Well, I mean, there had to be some of that, I'm sure. That's like a baseline. It's kind of like
It's table stakes.
if you're gonna open a chicken restaurant, you better have a good chicken sandwich,
Yeah.
Like it's just have it there. But the next level up is what you're talking about.
Listen, if I were looking for just a capable CFO or a capable sales leader or capable anything, your LinkedIn profile, your resume is going to tell me if you have it or not. Now, obviously, we're going to interview and make sure that you've done the things that you say you've done. But that, to my point, is table stakes. That's the basics. But then, are you a good fit for this company? You like this in your culture, but my client actually has this. So even though you've got the right resume, you might not be a really good fit for this culture. So let's not recommend you for it. And I think that's really what a great search firm does. I think that's something that we tried to promote there, something I taught the people that worked in our company every day.
So that is really because that's like intentional. That is what will, I'm gonna watch this, Randy. Watch this. That seems like thoughtful leadership to me.
I love that phrase.
Do you like that? Do you like that phrase? No, seriously though, it sounds very intentional. It sounds very like, hey, yeah, the table stakes are there. Make sure they have these foundational things, right? Like if we're
Mhm.
gonna play football, make sure that they can run and tackle and
Yeah.
pass and catch. But the other thoughtful piece on top of that is assessing the culture fit. And that's got to be so tough. I mean, I think for leaders to define it, because some leaders probably haven't defined it yet, but
Mhm.
then going into this idea of being thoughtful about what are we building here, and what do we want? Who are we going to bring in that's going to help us continue to build this thing, or who's going to come in and possibly jeopardize what we built?
What's interesting about this, Scott, is I think that there are two skills that I know I've worked very hard to cultivate over the last 30 years. And these are things that I coach on and teach on. And these are two skills that transcend not just the search business, but they also are things I use in my coaching business. And those skills are curiosity and active listening. So, in order to really figure out who's a good culture fit, I need to spend a lot of time with my client really asking the deep questions to get you to open up to me and tell me. Because to your point, a lot of people can't even describe their culture. They don't even know what they're looking for. But I can ask the questions to unlock that and put it on the table. But it's not enough just to take notes. I've got to be actively listening, deeply listening to see, okay, what does that mean? Let me push back over here. Let me figure this out. So if I'm asking the right questions and listening, I'm now equipped to help you find the right talent. In the work I do today, I'm using that to help us understand Where do you want to go? What are the obstacles between you and that success that you envision for yourself? And then how, as a coach, how can I help you eliminate those obstacles to get to that level of success you seek?
Is there a favorite question you love to ask?
And I do, and it will probably shock you.
Of how brilliant it is,
Oh, no,
Randy?
no, how basic it is, how simplistic it is. So I really like to get to know people personally and professionally. Before our call today, you and I were just, talking about where we're from, our families. We were getting all kinds of great stuff. So the first thing I'm going to ask you when I meet you for the first time or the 50th time, tell me about life outside of work. Where are you from? I want to get to know you before we talk about the business stuff. To me, that opens up the aperture to having a personal conversation because, quite frankly, business only conversations are boring and stale. And we need to all be thinking about an integrated life where we talk about family and work and everything in our lives. It's all integrated. So I'm going to ask you about your life outside of work. That's my favorite question.
Wow. Okay, that did
Not what you
surprise me,
expected.
actually. That did surprise me a little bit. It's basic, but that surprises me a little bit
Yeah.
because I would assume, well, I'm not going to assume this totally, just the way the generations and the workplace is changing a bit. But the old guard is more of like, hey, work and life are separate. Keep your home at home, keep your work at work. And this is the way we operate here. I don't, political discussions may not come around too much, this whole self, bring your whole self to work kind of thing.
Mhm.
No, keep them separate. Like we don't need the outside drama here because it affects productivity, it affects
Mhm.
morale, whatever. So how do you navigate that?
Well, I'm a big believer in authenticity. What you see is what you get. And I will, as I told you earlier, I'll talk about anything. My life is open. I'm a man of faith. I have a son with autism. I'm an open book. What do you want to know? And I find that my willingness to be authentic and vulnerable and transparent invites that in the person across from me. So if I don't know you very well, I may start out with, again, how's life outside of work? Tell me about your life. I'd like to know about you. And I find that because I'm asking very sincerely, I really do want to know. I will probably be sharing things about my life early on to make it comfortable for you. 99% of the time, it's a very comfortable conversation because I'm in that generation you're describing. I'm an older Gen X, okay? And I was kind of raised to keep things separate. But I have so many examples in my own life, in the lives of my clients, for people that have integrated every aspect of their life. Those are the people that lead the richer lives. Those are the ones that are really excelling in every area of their lives, the ones that truly integrate everything. So I believe in it. I'm going to be authentic about it. And that's just the way I am. And it's always worked well for me.
What does that enable you to do, though, whether you're interviewing somebody for an executive position or whether you're coaching an executive of some kind? Or what do you think that enables leadership to do when they're working with their people? The fact that they bring in, I call it lowering your wall of self-preservation, but really
Mhm.
being authentic, transparent, vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
What do those things as superpowers or as tools enable you to do?
Well, I would tell you that there's a cliche that's been around for decades, maybe longer, who knows? But there's a cliche around people don't quit companies, they quit bosses. And if you want to find the most inspirational, capable, successful leaders, the superpowers that I can identify in them is authenticity, vulnerability, patience. There are some things that I think these leaders do really well. They're willing to let you in. They're willing to let you see that they fail and struggle just like you. They're the ones that are willing to have honest conversations. So when I think about the most successful leaders I know, and I know a lot of leaders, those superpowers around authenticity, vulnerability, probably patience, those are the ones that I consistently see. So I think to your point, what makes these leaders stand out, what's special about them, I think people that work with them and around them gravitate to them, want to follow them, are inspired by them. And those are the leaders that probably have the most success, in my estimation.
What about that, though, makes them successful?
The very fact that they're willing to share their struggles, the fact that they're willing to say, "Hey, Scott, I don't have all the answers. Here's what I believe, but I don't know everything." There are some people, and maybe we're trained to do this at a young age. I think certainly in college, it comes out. We're all trained to let people see the perfect version of ourselves. Some people call it Facebook Scott or Facebook Randy, where there's that dream life, and you think that that's how people really live. And we both know it's not. So I think when you're willing to let people see, hey, the other day I had a really bad day, or I'm struggling, I've got a son with special needs, or my wife's got COVID and she's really not feeling well. Just letting people see that you're a real person, it just creates a different conversation. It's funny, I think everybody knows that we all deal with that stuff, but the people that are willing to admit it in leadership roles, those are the ones that I know I admire and that I'm willing to follow and do something with.
So let's talk about thoughtful leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, the book Thoughtful Leadership by Randy Hain. Yeah. We're going to talk about it. So talk about the book. What is it? This is your 11th book, man. I'm sitting there going, and I interview you crazy authors sometimes. I myself am an author now, Randy. I published a book in December, and I'm like, wow,
Congratulations.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was like, because I had enough of you people on my show for like 7 years, and everybody's like, "Are you going to write a book?" I was like, "I don't know. It seems like a lot." And when I think of Adam Grant or somebody like that, I'm like, I could never write a book like that. So I just got my own way. But I finally did it, and then I get to talk to y'all. They're like, "Oh yeah, this is my 11th book," and I'm like, "What?" Like, I don't get it, man. What keeps you going?
So I wrote my first book, I think 15 years ago, and I went through the very standard traditional process. Publishers approached me. I would do a contract and write the book on whatever it is that they wanted me to write about. But over the last 5 books, and really over the last 6 or 7 years, I've gotten very comfortable with some things that I do in my life. I walk a lot. I hike and walk every single day, and I reflect a lot. I think a lot. If I'm walking, I'm not listening to podcasts. Sorry, I'm not listening to music. I am thinking or praying or reflecting, and I journal a lot. So I'm always writing about experiences I've had with my clients, my friends, my family, ideas that come to mind. This morning I had a breakfast meeting and I was 30 minutes early. I wrote an entire blog post in 30 minutes waiting for a friend to show up. So because I'm always chronicling, writing about my experiences, I collect a lot of material very quickly. So what I've learned to do is I'll write blog posts and things in my journals. And then once I've got a lot of content, I'll simply look back and say, what are the themes? What have I been writing about for the last year? Well, this book came out of that process. So it came out about a month ago. And I've been writing a lot since last summer about my hope and desire that leaders will always be investing in themselves, being thoughtful about their own growth. So this book has 20 chapters, all unique topics, and I'm challenging the reader to get better in these areas. And I give you best practices and some things to think about to make it practical. But I'm also challenging you to do something else. This is the second part of the sub theme of the book. I want you to take what you've learned and I want you to coach and teach those around you. So the thoughtful leadership that I'm really preaching here, be thoughtful about your own growth, but the other manifestation is be thoughtful about helping others grow. So that's really what the book is about, 20 unique leadership topics. And it was a lot of fun to write and it's been well received. I'm grateful for that.
So tell us, so this is almost not really compilation, but these are themes that you have discovered that you've been writing about that are popping up over and over again. What are some of those?
So I write about the power of vulnerability, surprisingly. I wrote about patience. I wrote about how to make better connections with your team. I wrote about accountability. one of my favorite chapters, Scott, was do you remember Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers?
Oh yeah, it's brilliant. Love
Love
it.
that book. Do you remember the premise that he put in the book that actually has been contested? That if you have 10,000 hours of applied practice, you're an expert.
Right.
Well, there's a chapter in the book, and it's titled, um, I am only an expert at one thing. That's the title of the chapter. And I had a mentee of mine email me one day and said, "Hey, Randy, I just want to know, what are you an expert at?" And I really thought about my answer. And the answer is what became the chapter. I've been a husband for over 10,000 hours, a father for over 10,000 hours, community servant. I could name a lot of things, but I don't think I'm an expert at any of those. In fact, it would be ludicrous for me to say I'm an expert dad, an expert husband. I try, but I'm not there. The one thing that I'm an expert at, and this is going to sound silly, is taking long walks. And the reason I wrote about that is I have learned over the 35 years I've been an avid walker and hiker how to really glean the fruit of those experiences. So when I'm walking, I'm reflecting, praying, thinking. It's helped me become a better husband, father, coach, leader. Anything that I want to do better usually gets better when I'm out walking and thinking. So I talked about walking as the one thing I'll say I'm an expert at. But I challenge the reader to think about where you've got expertise. How can you get better? And how can you glean the fruit of your expertise and turn it into something powerful? So that's just one example.
How can I figure out what I'm an expert at, Randy? Do you work with that? Do you work with people on that?
It's not that that question comes up a lot, but I always challenge people to get reflective for a minute. Think about what it is that you know you've got skills in. Put humility aside for just a minute. What is it that you think you're good at? Make a list of those things. What is it that brings you joy? When you're doing these things, what brings you joy and happiness? And somewhere in that list of I've got skills here and I get joy from doing these things, that's probably the foundation for a really good conversation about what you're an expert at. Now, we can use Mr. Gladwell's 10,000 hours as a starting point, but I find that when I do go down that path with the two lists, people often really come up with some interesting things like, Randy, I'm an expert at being insightful. I'm an expert at patience. And the more I talk about it with people, the more they come up with some really interesting insights that maybe they wouldn't have gotten to without the basic list making. So I hope that's an answer to your question, but that's the only way I know to do it.
That's good. I really want to meet this person that's an expert in patience, though. Like that's a
Her
that,
name is Sandra Hain. It's my wife because she puts up with me.
yeah, of course, of
Yes.
course. She probably just tells you to go for a walk, and you're like, fine.
Getting me out of the house is the secret sauce. Yeah.
Is that why you walk so much, Randy? Is
Yeah.
that why you
Just to
walk?
escape. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that's funny. Okay. So the book, it's been out for a month now. We're in, November 2024.
Mhm.
So I'm sure people can find it wherever they buy books and whatnot.
Amazon's the
Yeah.
best place. Yeah.
Okay, cool. How, but how is this book for you different than the other 10, right? Because it's like they're all your children.
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
So what makes this one so unique as opposed to the other ones that you've probably written on leadership as well?
I would say that they're all unique and maybe I have an author's bias, but I do write about very distinct topics. I've written about encouraging the fathers of special needs children. I've got a book on that. I've written about my faith journey. I've written about the power of reflection. I've written about essential wisdom for leaders of every generation. So I do write about different things. This book was really one of my favorites, but I want to tell you exactly why. So last December, I have a dear friend named Andreas Widmer. And Andreas teaches at the Catholic University of America. He runs their entrepreneurship program. He's an author in his own right. He taught me an Italian phrase, and I love it because it's so powerful, and it's probably a way that you could look at my new book. The phrase is "ti voglio bene," "ti voglio bene," and what it means is "I want your good." And he taught it to me because we were talking about the word love. In English, we've got one word for love, and it's really hard to go talk to your colleagues about how much you love them. It doesn't work. The Greeks have 4 words for love, maybe more, but the Italians get the nuance of love because ti voglio bene is how you speak to colleagues and friends. Skot, ti voglio bene, I desire what is good for you. So that became really another theme of this book. Be thoughtful about yourself, be thoughtful about others, and help them learn what you've learned. Ti voglio bene. So to me, that really makes this book very different from my other books. It's really focused on that help. And it was a lot of fun to write. And I think the feedback I'm getting from readers is validating that what I thought it would be is what they're experiencing.
That's a gift. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
We, now I feel it, right? But that authors, a little piece of your soul gets into like every little book,
No doubt.
and
No
that
doubt.
it is a reflection of what you're thinking of the time and what's impactful for you. And a lot of people say you write it for yourself, and there's a lot of those things out there. So that's awesome. I love these topics. I think are going to be so relevant, especially because you've been writing so prolifically about them and for so long that they become a trend. And then you thought, I need to compile these because this is what's hot right now in my brain. This is what's hot in the world because I'm talking about it all the time.
Scott, can I tell you something my father told me 15 years ago? It was sage advice. And I think it really comes back to the point that I think you're making here. So my father's never written a word in his life for publication. Just a hardworking guy, great dad, great man. He's still alive at 86. My first book was about to come out, and I was so nervous. You know how it's like. First book's coming out, and you're nervous. Are people going to like this? Are they going to read it? Are they going to think it's terrible? You go through all those emotions. And my dad, out of the blue one day, said, "Son, it just strikes me that you're writing for 3 people." And I'm like, "Really? Tell me more about that." And he said, "It seems to me that you should write something that is pleasing to God, something that you would be proud, you want God to be proud of the work. Secondly, something that you're proud of, that you believe in, that you really have a lot of belief in this thing I just wrote. And the third person that you're writing for is one person in the audience whose life is made better by the work." Wow, audience of 3. It made so much sense to me. And ever since that day, I write for that audience of 3. I'm not really thinking about the critic in Des Moines, Iowa. If you like the book, great. If you don't, that's okay too. But if I get one email randomly from some stranger that says, "Your book made a difference in my life," check the box, I'm good.
That's it.
That's it.
I love that. I love that too. When you show up in random places and people are like, "Oh, I'm on chapter so and so of your book." You're like, "What? Somebody's reading it? Wow, that's awesome."
Yes.
That's awesome. And to get that validation, I think, of what you're trying to do, because I think that'll probably feed into your purposes. I think it is really, really cool. Randy, thanks for being here. If people want to hang out with you, they want to talk to you, have questions, etc., where do they go?
I think the best place to follow me and just check out the work is LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so follow me on LinkedIn. Ask me to join the network. I'm happy to do it. My website is serviampartners.com, and all of my books are on Amazon. So those are really the 3 primary ways you can engage with me and learn about the work.
Okay. Well, thanks, Randy. Thanks for the good. And I don't mean good like, hey, A+ work, Randy. I mean the good work you're doing. Because I think that's where I think what your dad was talking about. And I think that's what I can almost hear it in your voice, and I can almost see it in your demeanor of the kind of work that you want to do. So thanks for doing the kind of work you do.
Thank you.
I love the idea that curiosity and active listening were things that he pulled out of that executive search phase of his career, that he was then able to pull into what he does as a coach and what he does as well in helping teams thrive inside the environments that they are in. Vulnerability, transparency, authenticity, These things help build cultures. These things help build leaders that we want to follow and help us on the other side of that leadership feel that we can then be open. And I think that that was probably another one of the things that he would say he's an expert at or has a superpower for is lowering that wall himself to talk about the things that help other people feel comfortable. Honestly, I feel super comfortable talking to Randy. He just has that presence. He has that welcoming kind of aura about him that is just so inviting. So I feel that that's probably a gift, a superpower that he has. And he's probably an expert at that, regardless of whether he knows it or not. Vulnerability, patience, accountability, those things that he writes about in the book are themes that he's talked about and heard and written about over and over and over again. So you know what? I think that means we should pay attention to those things as well, because that's probably what we're all dealing with right now when it comes to our businesses and the teams that we are working within. Thank you very much, Randy, for being on the show, and good luck with the book. If you want to find out more information about me or check out the show notes where there's going to be more information and links to the things referenced in this episode, visit skotwaldron.com. And lastly, I'm asking for a little bit of love, just a little bit. So please take a moment, follow, rate the show. The algorithms like that. It helps me get the word out. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And until next time, stay unlocked.